Welcome to another episode of the Bhandwagon Podcast, and today I have got one half of the dynamic duo, one of the OGs of a movement, especially while I was at university. They are still repping and kicking it, and I had the privilege of seeing them recently at Jazz Dummy's event for his brother, and it just reminded me the classics that these guys have done and the sheer work that they've achieved. And this is hopefully I can ask some of those burning questions today and get them answered. So welcome to Rav, one half of the Panjabi Hit Squad.
Yo, what's going on? You cool?
I wish I had one of those sirens, the ones you go.
That's what you need, one of those ones.
I think that's where I heard it the most out of you guys on the set, especially when you used to put it when you're on radio. How are you keeping anyway?
Yes, all good. Just been busy touring, and I think that's keeping us really, really active currently. So yeah, it's just been a mad couple of months, and yeah, just looking forward to the new year really now.
Do you think a bit of a strange question, but is touring starting to get easier as you get older?
No, I think it gets harder. I think the expectation, I think friends, families, when you should be spending years with like the ones that you love, you realize that actually there's more demand for you. But I think at the same time, it's still great to be touring and going across the world, and and also you get bougier as you start to get older, right? So while the Ryanair flights, sitting at the back of the plane is all cool when you're like, you might be 21. Now, as you get older, you kind of start going, maybe I might just start paying for like a bigger leg room and, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, the game's still the game, but it's just changed a little bit.
Yeah, I see this. It's like a competition with artists that you, where they're in business class or we're in this class. And it's like, I don't give a shit. It's like, what I mean? It's like, that's a personal thing for you to do. But like,
to be honest, nobody cares. So if you're going to America to go and DJ, or you're going to Dubai or whatever it is, the people only care that you touch down. They don't care if you've had a nice relaxing journey, you've had a bottle of champagne on the way. All that they care is that you're there to perform and turn up for them. So yeah, that's all that ever matters.
Do you ever look at sort of the up and comers, right? Let's say from your side, and just think, you have no clue what's coming. Like, do you start not in a patronizing way or anything like that, because I know you're not that kind of person, but like when you've got that, like a parent when they think, oh yeah, you just wait when you're running your own house. You just wait. Does those kind of thoughts come in your head?
I mean, I think I would, if there was something that an artist that that we're close to, or somebody who we're around is doing something that I know is definitely gonna be detrimental to their career, we will pull them up and go, yo, like, maybe not do something like this, or maybe switch up, or whatever it might be. But I think most of the thing, I mean, it's the same thing with us, is that most of our lessons have come from certain failures or certain things that we haven't seen. So I think sometimes as an artist, you've got to go through that situation to then realize, what not to do next time around. But to be honest, I think the artists nowadays are quite clued on. I think they learn the game quite well. So there's not many artists that go outside of what they're meant to be doing. We kind of just tell main things that we tell any of our artists, or any of the artists that we're around, is just kind of just stay in your lane and just make sure that that you're giving out the best product you can, and to always put the fans first, really. So whether that be giving them music, or if you're doing something, how would your fans feel about this? What would they say about this? So if you're drinking and getting up to mischief or whatever it is, how would your fans feel about this? And don't forget, when I say fans, you might have fans from the age of, like, say 12, 13 years old all the way up to 70, 80 even. So you got to really see the dynamic of what it is that you're kind of trying to portray out there. So if you are having that lifestyle, whatever it is, understand that your fans, or your younger fans, might see that and go, oh, it's okay for me to do that. and then they might copy you, but they might get into trouble for that, and then they'll end up blaming you. So sometimes you have a little bit of responsibility as an artist to turn around and make sure that you're portraying the right thing, and also trying to make sure that you're mentoring even the people that you might not speak to, but through your music and through your actions as well.
Yeah. I mean, like you've been, as a brand, as a movement, you've been going for over 20 years now. And it's crazy when you start thinking about those, when those numbers kind of come around. But that's from when you've been sort of famed and come into it. What was the early life of Panjabi Hit Squad, and how did you guys form?
So initially, like we formed basically like Dee and I were a part of Asian DJ culture. And Mark was Mark with he was formerly with Maximum Energy. We kind of just connected through clubs, really. Mark used to run a nightclub, Limelight, hot and spicy on a Tuesday night, and we was DJ there. But we also became good friends through all of that. And then I guess like in like the 2001, we just kind of got together and were like, look, we can see that the music is going inverted commas mainstream. But there was an uptake of basically the wrong music getting out to those people. So when you think of like, I don't know, when a brand would come across and go, yeah, we want the latest Bhangra song, and all of a sudden there'll be like a drum and bass song mixed with a little bit of double R put into it, that wasn't really representative of what we were listening to in the clubs.
The scene. Yeah.
So it kind of really, really got us to really thinking that unless somebody took this and really kind of started pushing it in the right direction, only then we'll be able to kind of start forming a bigger movement. So we formed with Panjabi Hit Squad with that in mind. With also that, we want to release music, and kind of be active within club culture and mainstream culture as well. And we kind of started succeeding that, but then it really, really blew up when we started on One Extra.
Yeah.
Which is then when we kind of started to really take our broadcasting career. We'd done bits before that, but this was like a real big step in broadcasting. Plus, it also gave us an outlet to, again, like I said, push the right music in the right places.
Yeah.
So, go on, sorry.
No, because I just from as a punter point of view, like when I used to see some of your names attached to certain, singers, and I'm not talking like your run of the mill. I'm talking like Mariah Carey, your Ashanti. There was a Jay-Z mix. There was loads of things, and I think your successes now, looking back, have been so underplayed, in my opinion. It's almost criminal in some ways, because when there was interesting, Roach Killer put out a post over the weekend where he was talking about who the OGs are and doing this.
Yeah.
And then it was in the comments, well, you forgot this person. What about this person? What about this person?
Yeah.
And I think when you actually break it down, who are the people who amalgamated that all together? Because of that mainstream that you were still giving when you were on your broadcast, and you were giving opportunity to up and comers, you still do. But at that time, it was really rare, because when you had PMC blowing off, when you had everything else there, you guys got into that mainstream market to get in there. But did your peers then start treating you different as well, thinking, hang on, we should be in that space as well?
Not in a bad way, if that makes sense. Like, there wasn't a hate to say that, like we should be there or whatever it is. I think if anything, there was this competitive spirit that came across, and if I was to create this scenario, I really hope the situation was that we were doing these mixes, and then Dr. Zeus, who would be working upstairs in Cam Frantic Studio, would be like, you know what, I need to get on this as well, and then starts producing songs. And then, like it might be, RDB or whoever it is. Like, I hope it wasn't like a hate thing. I really, really hope it was more of a, they're doing it, we can do it. And I think that really came together on our Desi Beats album for Def Jam, which is where we put like, your Juggy D. This is before Juggy D had his album Saunier. This is before Raghav had blown up. These are all times where like all those new stars were coming up, but also we had to kind of represent the legends that were already around us, like Panjabi MC and Tiger Style and all these. We wanted to make sure that basically it was all coming up at the same time. I've never ever had a situation, or I don't think we've ever had a situation where it came across as that there was any hate towards us. But I guess if you're in a competing industry, I reckon, there was probably a bit of like, are they doing it? We should be doing it too.
Yeah.
And I commend that at the end of the day. Why shouldn't you be doing this? The thing is that a lot of people think that a music scene or a music genre can just be one person. It can't. It has to be everyone. It has to be DJ Sound. It has to be Punjabi MC. It has to be Target Style. It has to be, it has to be all of these people all at one time pushing and breaking down every single door you can ever imagine. And some people walked through it and some people didn't. And if you didn't, that's not a problem. You tried. If you did, great. Did you carry on? What happened after that? There's so much going on with this whole story that came from UK Bhangra music, that transformed into Desi Beats music, that I think that's really the story that kind of gets lost in translation.
So how do you define what Desi Beats means? What is it for you?
So I guess that at the time, when the term was coined, there was this whole thing of that people didn't. Number one, we got really, really confused and jarred when people used to call it Bongra or Bangra. There wasn't really like this whole, and then the amount of times that we would try to explain to him is Bhangra music or Punjabi music. There was just too much of a wide definition going on. So now people say, what was the difference between Bollywood and Bhangra? There was all these kind of things going. And also, Bhangra music didn't come from the UK. It came from India, Punjab. These are the things it kind of happened. So what would happen is that when you'd have those situations happening, we needed something that kind of represented what we were doing, what was happening from the UK, and that kind of just amalgamated into something called Desi Beats. We just had to think of a name that kind of represented where we were from, and the name was already getting flung around a little bit anyway, and I guess it just stuck. It stuck to the point where our radio show was called that, our first Def Jam album was called that. And I think many, many things came through that. And I think a lot of the artists were actually okay with that term. So, that's kind of how it worked.
If you were looking back on it now, obviously with your experienced eyes, and your lenses in terms of relationships and that, what is there anything that you would change when you were first starting? What was the biggest thing that you noticed and you would have tweaked?
Oh, I'm not sure. I mean, I think I wish that I wish we could have gone forward in time to then understand, to look back and go how successful, how great that we all were at the time. And I think what really, really affected a lot of people was the politics in between labels more than between artists. And I think obviously with what happened is that our music scene, with any music scene, is quite politics fueled anyway. And, you can't work with that person. I've got that singer and that person, we were quite young. And then all of a sudden we've still got that going on. But then now our music scene has completely jumped off quickly. And, the uptake in Asian music was so fast, and the mainstream wanted it, and our usual clients wanted it, and the people wanted it so quickly. So, but I think that we never really at that time grew out of that state of mind. And then what happened is that everyone was selling everything to labels at a cheap price. We were selling the culture really, really cheap. But again, at the time, you didn't know that you were doing that, because you were just, any label will come to you and say, can we have a mix of this, or can you do this? And we were like, yeah, cool, we can. And, it'll be worth like £200, when really and truly we should have really, really tried to keep hold of that a lot more, because, with the beautiful thing about our music scene was it was already it was self-reliant. It was already we already had the mechanism in, we had the distribution, we had the outlets, we had the people, we had TV channels, we had print media, we had our own culture going on, and complete like ecosystem within the ecosystem that kind of worked. We didn't need anyone else. Actually, the only thing that we needed from the mainstream was just the exposure side of things. So I think if people started to understand that that's the only thing we needed, if you wanted to get a marketing campaign or whatever it is done, a national radio campaign, at one point it might have cost you say £5,000. but to be honest, if you were to turn around and ask an uncle or someone, whatever, or even your friend circle, I need to raise £5,000 and let's do this, you'd probably be able to do that as well without selling your soul. So that way around, you kind of
Yeah.
retained your ownership. And I guess that again, that's another thing, is retaining ownership of your songs and of your rights and your masters, which again is another conversation. But I guess looking back, that's the kind of things that I would, we would have had more of a conversation about to a lot of the artists, was like, how do you retain all of the art that you're making and make sure that basically you're paid for the future, and that a big major label isn't paid for in the future, because they're going to be okay.
Yeah, it's really interesting that, because over the last month or so, I've been really getting involved and looking at the PRS sort of side of things, because I think that discussion is coming over towards podcasting and into different areas, and the amount of stories of people not having major hits, having all this kind of back catalogue, and have no idea who owns their stuff and where it's gone, and people living off it and taking all those royalties. Because it's interesting, the language that you've said is very, very professional, and it's one of my bugbears where the industry, the South Asian industry, especially the Punjabi folk industry or the Bhangra scene, didn't really have that kind of professionalism in there. It was all kind of gentlemen's agreements, the input, the politics there, things not written down as much. And it was kind of like, okay, here's this, on your way. Thank you very much. Good night.
But also, sorry, just to add to that, I mean, I'm not putting fault at anyone, but also, sometimes when Punjabi singers used to come to the UK, they used to operate in that kind of way.
Of course.
So it wasn't that, listen, Baji, we want to do everything like this. We want to give you a split. There wasn't that actual, there wasn't actually that going on. There was a lot of things going on. Listen, guys, I'm here. I'm going to sing a song. You pay me and you do what you want with the song. There was a lot of that going on as well. So, I think that there might have been a certain section of deception in some circumstances, but a lot of the time it was just, singers that would come into the UK or singers that were from the UK, they equated success with however many songs they had out there. And for them, they couldn't really be bothered to worry about this whole thing called PRS and registering and, waiting for money to come in little bits. What they didn't understand, that actually that money is like a it's like a payment plan that you get later on in life, or whatever it is. The money comes in. It might not come in big bits every single month, but it comes in slowly enough so that you can then turn around and make a retirement plan, or whatever it might be. So a lot of the artists didn't really understand that. They just like, look, let's just take the big money now, because if I've got £250 now, this song might not be great or it might not blow up. I might only make £5 on it later on down the line. So I might as well take the 250 now and I'm gone with it. So a lot of artists did do that. So sometimes it isn't as black and white when people say, this person didn't get their credit and that person didn't get. They didn't get their credit, or they didn't get the money they deserved, or whatever it might be, was because they didn't want it at that time. I've worked with singers that they were just like, basically, look, you just pay me what I tell you, and you guys do whatever you want. I don't want none of this. This is your 15%, 20%, or whatever it might be. So, sometimes you just gotta kind of let the business side of things go. As long as you're being clean-hearted with it and you're being upfront with it, then I guess that's all you can really hope for.
Yeah, I think you kind of answered the question I was going to say, which was in terms of like, you're trying to bring a professional like market model, knowing how you're dealing with the mainstream and your connections into a market that isn't, and then trying to convince them to say, look, in the long run, in your interest, it's this, and they go, no, we want the cash, we want to do this, like, see you later, and I'm gone.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of just what the culture was, and now I hear some stories of people coming back and going, oh, we weren't. But, you signed the paperwork, and again, like, the paperwork states you need to get this checked out by a lawyer. But, your best friend who came with you in the car is not a lawyer. Again, cash is king. So for them, I really hope that a lot of the artists that did do that back in the day, that they took their cash and they invested it in a place where they could do more with it. But I mean, I've never really had anyone come back to me and go that this is a situation. We've always given fair credit and fair everything, even when we've been told not to, or they've gone, look, we're doing a different plan here. But those kind of contracts exist though. So, it's not every contract is a bad contract. It's just that, you have to turn around and be fair and careful, and especially if you're dealing with an artist that is also giving up the art, because that's kind of what it means at the end of the day. It's the art, right? We're creating art when we get in the studio and make music for a song. A singer's coming in, he's using his voice or her voice to turn around and create a piece of art. So I think everyone should be fairly compensated for that.
Where did you as an individual start getting your musical influences from? So what was your musical journey?
Musical journey. So I think the biggest musical inspiration has been coming from Southall. And also with that, I was surrounded by DJs, left, right, and center. As most people know about Southall. Everyone's either a builder, a DJ, or a shop owner, one or the other. So that's kind of one of the biggest inspirations that we got from. But I think as I was around those circles and my friend circles as well, we were just all into music. We were into watching the great Indian dancers dance and figure out how music came into that, door playing, playing. We were around all of these things, and I think that kind of got the bug for me in terms of knowing that I wanted to go down this path. And then kind of when I got out of high school, it kind of was like, look, I want to be a DJ. This is what I'm good at doing. But also, how do I break the trend that is currently going on? What can I do to help that move along?
What was the trend that needed breaking?
I guess the trend that needed breaking was that number one, there was this Asian underground scene going on that wasn't representative of what I was wanting to do. And I respect that music scene. That's cool, but from where I was growing up, the stars were B21, Jazzy B. They, for us, it wasn't really, the Talvin Sings and all the rest of it. But not to say that wasn't for other people. Just wasn't for where I was. So, I think that there's like there was this thing of that I just wanted to make sure that then those kind of people that I just mentioned were getting forward and was getting their dues. So when I started to go to Limelight and I started to meet Mark and I started to go out to clubs, then when I got there, I was like, yo, this is what people are playing. We are playing homegrown acts like B21 and 4x4 and DIP and all these people and Zeus and all these kind of guys. Also, we were playing Sadur Sikandar, we were also playing Wakeet Singh, we were playing Hira still at that time, Alap, and all these things were just coexisting. And some of the bands, while they might have been from Punjab, but they were in the UK, they were in the West Midlands, they were in London, they were in Glasgow, they were in Huddersfield, they were in all these places. So, I think we just want to make sure that kind of came across, because I can speak about and I can make music coming from a Punjabi person in the UK. I can't really speak about and do music from the point of view of somebody in Punjab because I'm not in Punjab. So I think it's quite unfair when people make songs that are not really associated to them, or they don't understand the what's going on in the song and what comes around it. So I think that's the only thing that really we wanted to change. We wanted to make sure that the music that we were doing and we were putting together and we were putting out and we were playing to was getting to the forefront.
So, do you still have those feelings now in terms of especially if you're kind of playing abroad, where if your knowledge, your music, eclectic knowledge, when you as a DJ, for example, you need to know your audience as much as you can. So, when you're choosing your songs, the conscious decisions of like what I'm going to play, those genres, how do you kind of upskill and maintain that knowledge?
So I think in terms of like choosing our DJ sets, and I think going around it, I think we kind of start with Panjabi Hit Squad Southall, right? Now we have that.
That's your base.
That's our starting point.
Yeah.
And to be honest, our starting point for that is always Hi, because the song is made in Southall.
I'm gonna get to that.
Yeah, right. So that's our starting point. And now, the music scene that we came through was like that UK Bhangra garage thing. So now we incorporate that into our sets. Um, Now on top of that, we incorporate that, hip hop was another big influence into our sets. So, you incorporate, your Mundiata Buttigieg into that situation. And of course, trying to mix those in with all the other people now that are coming through that have that same influence. But also now coming to the outside of it now, having the influence of, say, Diljit Dosanjh and his contribution, to the Musiala, of course, Goran Aujla, and new stars as well. So when you're formulating something like that, it's really important that we kind of stick to exactly what we're trying to say with our thing. We made this mistake many a times, and that you go somewhere and all of a sudden you are Panjabi Hit Squad. People have seen you and they've seen you perform in a way, and then you perform something completely different to what is actually what your core is meant to be. So, and I think it's quite difficult to do that because I think you're kind of selling yourself short, and I think in the scene that in the way that we're putting out the music currently, I think it's really important that you stand on something and you have something to put out there. So, if you are a DJ who's really invested into matters that happen in Punjab, and you have your Instagram page, your Twitter or X feed is all about all these issues, everything, and you come on and start playing R&B music, it's a little bit weird because people are expecting you to come up and maybe play songs that are associated with things that happen in Punjab or whatever it might be. So yeah, there's a lot of that goes on. Sometimes it's just what it is. If you're just some people just class themselves as DJs, but I think we're in a time right now that you can really specialize in what you're doing and still be popular and still be famous.
Really interesting you said that, and I never really thought of it in that way, because I know a few kind of artists or DJs who go to different kind of countries and they play a completely different set than what was going to be in the UK. I did ask them, and that is basically to ensure that they get another booking there. So
yeah,
it's a battle then between bookings and brand, isn't it?
Yeah, and also I don't want to chuck anyone under the bus or anything about that. It's fine if you do that, but you have to figure out a way of how you blend that in.
Yeah,
because and this is just as an example, you can't scream justice for Sidhu Musiala and then go and play a song that features Kangana Ranaut in it or whatever it might be. Those kind of things can't really coexist in that kind of way. There has to be some kind of blend, and I know DJs might turn around and say, well, I'm just a DJ, I'm just playing the songs, or I'm playing to a crowd. That's cool. I think what I will find really amazing and is that when a DJ will do that and then he finds a place of where he can represent who he is and it works, so I think it is that with us as well, that we will play a UK garage Bhangra set, wherever it might be, in Germany, let's just say. But then we will still take time to be like, okay, cool. These people are having a great time and all the rest of it, but we now need to name check the people that actually were a part of making this happen. So we will, do a little tribute to Sidhu Musiala, and we will make sure that these kind of people are name checked and brought into the mix, because I think it's important that, especially us as Panjabi Hit Squad, to make sure that those sacrifices that those people made just don't go unnoticed.
Do you where have you on your tours, or where have you been? Where have you had the most unexpected response?
The most unexpected response has just been in Delhi and Mumbai. Amazing events. Went out there thinking that we were going to end up playing in Mumbai Bollywood music. So again, prepared set lists that were again reflective of what we're doing.
Yeah, of course.
But again, making sure
blend,
that mix. Yeah. We got there and that got thrown out within 3 songs. Like they were just like, if you don't play Hi and this song and that song, and then we ended up playing like an hour and a half of just UK Bhangra garage stuff. So if you can just imagine, it was like the Putrazar, their RDBs, all that kind of stuff. That's what I wanted, and we were just like, wow, the music scene over there is really, really changing, and hats off to the people that are making it change over there. But there is like this whole renaissance of UK Bhangra garage that's coming through, and also not only just UK Bhangra garage, but also like UK garage music. People over there wanted So Solid Crew, and I haven't heard anyone request So Solid Crew for a long
more
time.
Fire Crew,
right? Yeah, and it's great to have that. And then when we're mixing in, we have like a door player with us, drumline, Jazz. When he's mixing in his beats with it, and also doing it like the way that we do it in the UK, not the way that they have it. We have our own way of doing things. They loved it, and that surprised us. And then going to Delhi as well, again, same thing. It's just crazy. It's just changing, and it's an amazing way.
I'm gonna have a moan now.
It's quiet.
I was looking at all this boiler room stuff that came out. Yeah. I'm sitting there. I'm looking at it, and it's all over my feed. And the more I'm seeing, the more vexed I'm getting. Right. The one is because I'm looking at there's no one my age, right? The second one is when I'm seeing you guys there, and people trying to tell me about Panjabi Hit Squad.
Yeah.
And it's being sold as a new concept the way. And I was like, these fuckers were doing it back then. Right. So you know what I mean? So it's kind of like rebranded, rehashed, and done it from that side. And I was like,
yeah,
you don't understand. These guys started that over here, and they've done it from there. And like now they're getting their flowers. What about for the past 20 years where the flowers should have been given out? Do you know what I mean? And that was like kind of my moan there, because I was like, you're getting kind of new school, and they're doing all this, and it's fantastic to see the renaissance of it. And I think that's the correct word, the renaissance of it. But I just think all those acts and who have been and gone and who have not had the chance to kind of be celebrated, and I'm just seeing it in now, and other people trying to take the credit for it and do it. I just that was my main moaning point, that my frustration.
I mean, again, like I think that.
Am I right? Firstly, or am I wrong?
No, I think you're right. I think there's a general thing that why is it taking this long? Number one, and also but then also, people are turning into their granddads and their dads. When you can just imagine when B21 came out. Oh, they don't know how to sing. Or even before that, when a lot of they don't know how to write song. Right. So the generation before will always have something to complain about, because to them in their heyday, they had it. So they always have something to complain on. And I think with us, we've kind of always adapted around that. Can you just imagine that when Imran Khan first came out with Amplifier, and I remember when it first came out, and I remember that the comment section was just absolutely ripping the guy. What is he talking about? Amplifier, this song's too slow. It's hip hop. What has this guy done to his? Like, he had all of it.
Yeah.
And yet, when you look at it, he's produced not only one of the best songs ever, but also one of the best albums that anyone has ever heard in terms of fusion between Desi music and urban music, and I think that's what it is. I think the concept of Boiler Room's been around for like 12 years, 13 years, or whatever it might be. And they wanted to make sure that they came into the scene at the right time, and others might have done it before that or whatever it might be, and that's cool. But for us, it was like, they might have done it before. Other people might have jumped on this, and there might be people that are trying to claim it, but they've never come to Southall. They've never had the Diljit song played, and
exactly. It's just, I think what it is, and I maybe I am. As you get older, you do turn into your parents or something like that. You do complain, but I think it's not for my benefit. It's for when Desi Beats came out. Yeah, Bali Jagpal, General Levy, Dr. Zeus. There was commercial songs that should have crossed over and made it, and gone a lot more successful. And at that time, then you had Timbaland using Indian flutes, using all these other bits, and I've seen that phase once. Yeah. Now I see the phase coming again, but more about the obsession of the brown pound. Yeah. And I think it's not, and I think because the mainstream labels are so experienced in utilizing, exploiting cultures in terms of taking the music, getting it is so dispensable that they take it and then go off. I just don't want to see that same thing happening now, especially as we're at a pivotal point, I feel, in the culture where we've got UK talent. The majority of music coming out now is coming out with less and less musical Punjabi instruments in those tracks, which is going to have a knock on with the culture. Less and less speaking Punjabi in families and stuff. And I feel that there's a perfect storm happening here, and I'm a bit oversensitive to it in that way.
Well, I think I understand what you're saying, and I also look at the flip side of the coin, which is what I'm seeing is a lot more people come back into learning about Asian culture that might have necessarily not might have just gone away from it, you know. And it's also thanks to people like Raf Sapera, that, you know, he's up in that world. He's up where the mainstream are talking about him. And yes, he has his biggest song, which is Natle Sonia, which is a garage song, but he's also making sure that he does a tour with door players and, you know, or goze players, and he's got live singing, and he's got all of these things that are coming together. So while there is the sense of that, yeah, you know what, you know, the mainstream might just take this and run with it, or, you know, they might take all of those bits out of it. He's trying his hardest to make sure to say, cool, you know, I'm also going to bring through the culture that came with it. So, you know, I think more and more people are starting to understand that and kind of bring that. And also I see that there is a lot of people that are not willing to turn around and sell out our culture for cheap anymore, as what it used to be.
Yeah.
Because now there is a culture, you get called out on it very quickly. So people don't really want to do that. And I think that's a good thing. You know, the generation of young DJs and young creatives that I speak to now, they're very, very on board with this whole thing of, like, you know, when people want to design things, or, you know, they want to do t-shirts or branding with anyone, you know, let it be that they do it with a brand creative. Let it, you know, if they're doing something you know, about Punjab, you know, make sure that the artist or somebody around there is Punjabi, or, you know, somebody on the board is Punjabi, so that, you know, it's authentic, where it's coming from and what it's doing and all these kind of things. So I think it's really, really important that those kind of situations are happening. I guess it's just up to the artist or the people to make sure that that carries on in that way, really. You know, it has to be that you know, that your culture is spoken about correctly and kept to a high standard, because otherwise, then you're right, it gets diluted, and, you know, you don't want that to happen.
Yeah, I think, you know, and I think what's different from like now and let's say phase one when it first happened was that I think where you're able to have conversations like these and debates with people who were there, like, and experience it firsthand, like yourselves, to pass on that knowledge, that mentoring, and being that those figures to say, oh, make sure you do this, make sure you are protecting yourself, make sure you don't dilute, you stick to your brand, your core. And I think that is a fundamental area. And also a willingness to change your mind and your opinion on it. You know, I kind of flip in and out of it. It depends on where I am and who I speak to, or, you know, from experience of when you speak to artists and how major labels are trying to exploit them, that they feel, or this is what's going on, because there's no other alternative. If you don't, you can die. Your future can look a lot more bleaker. So I think you guys now especially have kind of a bigger role within in that in terms of leaders. Do you see yourself as kind of leaders and having that responsibility to do it? Because for some people they'll say, you know, I'm not a role model, we're not role model, we just do our thing, see you later, go, we do our bit, go. Do you think you're a little bit more than that? Not
So I don't think I don't think we're out there to be role models, if that makes sense. You know, I don't want to be that kind of a person, but I do know that my actions have can influence people in terms of what we put out there, what we say, what we do. So I guess that, you know, like I said before, that our age range is so wide. I've had 11, 12-year-olds come up to us at events and wanting to sign, pieces of paper and all this kind of stuff. So really, you owe it to them as well, about what you say and how you go on stage and the kind of music you release. And then you like, even if you get to universities and all that kind of stuff, and even the older fans as well. Like I, I think we have a great way of communicating with all age ranges really well.
Yeah.
And I guess that is a little bit of a thought out process as well with it, because we want it to be that if you're at university or working or whatever, is going out with friends on a Friday or Saturday night, wherever it is, you can understand the language that we're speaking and you can understand what we're doing. Want it to be that basically if you're of a little bit older generation and you're chill and you're might be with your son or your daughter, that you can also relate to what we're doing. So that comes really good through the radio as well. So we get a lot of families tuned in and kind of saying that if sometimes we might play a new remix of a song that might have come out in the 90s or whatever it might be, the older person will go, I remember when this first came out. The younger one's like, yo, I'm here when the first one came out. So there's a lot of that. We like that. We like that there's no separation between the ages when it comes to the music. So yeah, a lot of that comes across. But I guess in terms of like knowing that we're role models, I don't want to put that out there because I don't think we are, but we always are conscious of the decisions that we make because we know they have repercussions to that kind of stuff. But also I like, with the new generation, I keep a really, really good relationship with all of them. That and they all say you're an OG and all the rest of it. Yeah, I understand that. I'm old. Or we're old. We're old in the game, But for us, I think it's really important that I always like keep a good relationship with these people because they're also representing the music that we play. So in the same way, I don't, I never want them to again make the mistake of going out and doing something that they might regret later on. Especially when I'm seeing the good pool of talent that we're around currently. I want them to make sure that they're making the most of it. So if I ever see somebody doing anything, I'll be like, yo, do it like this or whatever it might be. I'm cool with that all the time. But also just kind of learning songs and and just getting it all of the beautiful stuff that's coming through currently, or even if it's new DJs, new creatives that are coming through. I think over the last like 2-3 years, especially since lockdown, like I've connected with some really, really amazing people, and I'm glad to still have those relationships now, including you as well. Like I think
I know, I appreciate it. Yeah,
we connected over lockdown, and I guess that's kind of it, and again, I think it's okay if you're on two different sides of the spectrum to just sit down and have a conversation is what it's about. It's the music and the scene isn't just one-sided. It's loads of different sides, and to keep on mentioning his name, Sidhu Musiala. I had a conversation the other day that somebody said to me that they weren't a fan of Sidhu Musiala, and you're like, what do you mean? And they were like, look, because of this, but I'm more of a fan of this person, and this is the reason why. And you've got to respect that, because while he was an influential figure outside of music, but when it came to music, it's like chalk and cheese. Some people like your music and some people don't. And I guess that's what comes down to it.
I think that's a massive point, which is like, there's food for everyone. If people got particular tastes, there's different artists, all this from there. I think what we're probably trying to do is stimulate it, that there's enough food on the table, variety, because if people just start having the one type, then that's no good for anyone.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of a nice segue in terms of like, when you're looking at different types of music, how did you compile from when you were going from being a DJ and going into sort of the album arena when you in 2001 when you're putting out the album, in terms of how did you kind of formulate that?
I think we wanted to make sure that it showcased all of the different music we were listening to. So we had garage music on there, we had R&B music on there, with some hip hop music on there as well, some dancehall, reggae music in there as well. I think that's kind of where we were in terms of the music scene that we were representing. Our peers around us were doing the same kind of things. So, that's kind of really where we drew inspiration. And, unfortunately, the money and the time that you have in a CD is very, very limited. So you have to kind of showcase all of your things that you can do within those 74 minutes that you used to have on the CD. Yeah, so how we used to formulate our music was kind of that, and just make sure that all of the things that we, were listening to and was being showcased all at one time. We tried not to like fit into just one box. We kind of wanted to be a little bit varied with it. But as we got further down the road, we kind of started to, really compress it into a couple of lanes, really.
So, you mentioned it a few times already. The track Hi Hi was for me one of the main introductions into going into yourselves and seeing it from there. So the first question I want to ask you is, where is Miss Scandalous?
Miss Scandalous is currently on a little bit of a break. But again, not to give too much away, but she's really, really happy with the mark that she's left on the scene, and her as being Miss Scandalous. And she really just wants to come back whenever she's ready to come back, really. I hate this when people come back just for being forced into it. I think as an artist, especially the caliber that Miss Scandalous is working at, that that she comes back whenever she's ready and she's got something to say. She's got this new fan base that's come through that is really speaking to young brown girls, about self-love, just navigating through the times that we're in. And she was talking about that in 2003, 2004. So I think, the younger generation really appreciate that there is somebody of that caliber doing it. So yeah, it's like she'll come back when she's ready. So don't worry about that.
No,
I'm not going to be that person that puts out like the songs that never made the first album out, just to kind of keep the money flowing in. It was never about that. It was all about the art and about what we were trying to push.
Yeah, I think when you kind of reflect back on it and you go through the successes and the good times, and you can't stop but yourself from when you hear a song to go reminiscing of when it is and knowing where you were when you heard it, if you're that very connected to your music, or knowing what you were doing, or your friends at the time. And so I think when people look back, especially some of your albums and things like that, you've got that nostalgic look. And I think a lot of artists, for example, may only live off one album, and they're a nostalgia act, and they getting all their bookings coming through.
Yeah.
And then if you look at somebody like Miss Scandalous, or what you said, that it wasn't about money, it was more about the movement or kind of her own personal stuff. You have a lot more respect like that. It's still almost kind of like a Lauryn Hill kind of vibe, where I'm going to do things on my terms. I'm going to get out there. And the easier option was to kind of keep putting it out and actually diluting your work.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, that was quite a long question.
Yeah. I was more of a statement thing.
yeah. That's the thing. There's a lot in it there, and I guess that's kind of what it is. That sometimes I think it's because of God's grace that Hi Hi came together, and it did what it did, and it propelled us to where we are today. So we can never ever forget about that. And the same with Scandalous. It's hard because we have that one standout song, and it's so hard to compete against that every single time. But we've created some other big moments throughout that. So Miss Scandalous's first album, we had some songs on there as well. Alicia's album as well. We were really into like promoting female voice, so we wanted that to be together as one. And then in 2012 we ended up working with Rav Dee. So we kind of really, really make sure that it's not. While we know that Hi Hi is like the pinnacle of what we're about and everything, but at the same time we never want it to be that basically that was the only song and that we had nothing in between it. We want to make sure that there were still sections in between it that and also that we were working with really, really high caliber artists at the same time as well. So
Streets, you had loads of stuff. Interesting. You got Off the Wall background, Michael Jackson there. On the other side.
That's my birthday present, where my family just gave me a wall of CDs that I'm influenced by. So
look at that! I Enter the 36 Chambers, Lauryn Hill, The Chronic,
Dr. Dre, Timbaland, Shock Value, Funkmaster Flex, Usher, Notorious B.I.G. Ready to Die, Jay-Z Blueprint, 1 in a Million Aaliyah, Off the Wall, Michael Jackson and Mary J. Blige was Born One, Gangster Hard to Earn, Nas, Illmatic, and Diary of Mad Van Jodeci. So yeah.
And you know, just talking about trying to live up to your second albums. Imagine some of them ones, their second albums after releasing that. You know, you had Thriller coming out.
Yeah.
You know, ODB. So I know exactly. You know, your portfolio. You might only get, you know, remembered for that one call. Some people don't even get a cool moment, you know, from in there. But the repertoire, and I think your achievements for me personally is being around the longevity. You know, it's so rare. Around, you know, you'll have artists coming out having that little phase and that little spurt, but you guys are still going, you know, you're still going to see what's happening at this point.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think that's kind of it, really. You know, I mean, I know it always keeps coming back to hi, and everyone's like hi. You know, we appreciate that, but you know, we want to make sure that when we're DJing in the club or when we're on the radio, whatever it might be, that we're saying, yeah, hi's a great and amazing record, but have you heard this? And have you heard this song? And have you heard this new song? Also, do you remember when this came out that was also amazing that you might have forgotten about over the years?
Yeah.
You know, and I guess that's what kind of keeps us in the mix with everyone, because it's that reinvention and reintroduction of the music. You know, I've been in places where I know a couple of months ago, and I remember this after the Boiler Room, that we did an event, and I ended up playing Dintija by Dr. Zeus.
Yeah.
And it went off, and some guy comes up to me and goes, "Yo, what was that new song you played?" Oh, what new song? He's like, yo, here, look, I've got it on my phone. I Shazammed it, but I want to make sure because I think my Shazam's wrong. So he's obviously Shazammed it, and it's come up as 2003. He's like, no, that can't be. I said, mate, you have no idea, do you? Like,
yeah, but wouldn't you love to be that position? You know, when you go there, it's like someone not watching The Godfathers for the first time. You're like, yo, your next month is going to be the best month of your life. You know, like interesting. You know, when we connected in May again, and then when you released Wrong, you know, I transported back to that because the vibes were in there, and I was like, you know, like this is so much stuff.
I mean, with Wrong, it was like we wanted to just put out some R&B music, to be honest. You know, everyone straight away said, you know, what's going on, man? Like, we're going to chart it, and what's going to happen, and what promotional marketing have you got going on with it, and how many websites? I'm not doing none of it. I'm I'm putting music out for music, and you know, whether that means it sticks or not, it's fine. It's a great song, and you know, that's what we love about it. You know, I think the only problem that happened with it is that our Boiler Room video trumps everything currently that we're doing. So
I think that annoyed me as well. But,
so you know, I think that's the issue. But I guess it's for good reasons. But
you
know, I think that there's a lot going on that has to happen and does happen, that we make sure that we're always in the right circles to make sure our longevity within the music scene carries on. You know,
the relationship with BBC Asian Network now. You've one of the veterans within there now around it. How has that experience been for you from your first introduction on being on radio to where it is now? How do you see that movement evolving? How has it changed?
I mean, of course, you know, we've been on air for 20 years. 10 of those years was one extra, and 10 of that has been on Asian Network, or a little bit over 10. But I think that I guess as well, you know, with any radio station, any person, that it has to keep on evolving, and you know, the people that don't evolve with that station or whatever it might be, kind of, you know, might not be needed anymore. And you know, the people who do evolve, they find to play different positions. You know, I guess it, and you know, it's not a mark or a bearing of any kind of what kind of position you play within that station. Just sometimes that, you know, you might be needed for a bigger purpose at some point within that station. So while you might be a complete and utter music person right now, and you know, you might be doing the late night show, whatever, playing music, but you know, there might be an opportunity for you to do a documentary or something different within that station that actually propels you into a different place. So there's a lot of that going on. I just really, I really want the Asian Network and, to keep on developing and keep on moving and helping not only just the new young artists come forward as well, but also support the current artists that are there as well. So there's a lot of that going on, really. I guess, I think it's just time will tell, really, isn't it? Where it kind of gets placed. I think COVID really, really set the marker for a lot of people, but I guess for Asian Network, it became this one thing where, it became one outlet for people to kind of get away from what was going on in the world, and I guess it really, really helped with that. But, there's always a lot going on, and like every other corporation in the world, there's obviously something going on that is further up than the powers that be, that is further up than what we are. But I guess for us and the people that we always talk with around the BBC, we're just always about the music, really, and I guess that's our job. That's the main thing.
I'm going to ask two unfair and loaded questions, so I'm giving you one beforehand.
Two?
Yeah, just two. Do you feel that you got the enough credit and the clout for actually working in One Extra?
Yeah. Well, maybe we could have got more, but when I tell you that we were around people that really, really believed in us and also really believed in the music scene, I'm still with those people to this day. And if it wasn't for those people really championing what we did, we wouldn't have better shows on One Extra. Bearing in mind, we started on One Extra. Our show was on once a Sunday, and it was on from like 4 till 6 in the morning. Yeah, that's what the original plan was. So you can just imagine that to take that to then transform that slot into a Thursday night from 10 till 12, amazing listening figures, for them to support a Panjabi Hit Squad tour, which also had like Jesse Sidhu. At the time, this is obviously right, Jesse, Rishi Rich Project, Jay Sean, Juggy, mixing up with Heartless Crew, Rampage, all the rest of it. They really, really championed us. I think it was just, again, the evolution of the station that kind of meant that what we were doing at One Extra was now being kind of a little bit replicated on Asian Network. So maybe that there's a spot here where you guys can transform over to Asian Network and carry on that whole tradition, which is actually what we did, and that's fair enough to say, that's not a problem. There was never a situation where it's like, okay, guys, see you later, you're not needed anymore. There was really this thought process that came around. How do we make sure that the legacy of Panjabi Hit Squad carries on, and also the music that we put out carries on somewhere else? And again, Asian Network was also the main fit for that at the same time. And we carried that on an Asian Network. So, I think that we definitely got to where we want to be with One Extra. We're happy that they support us to this day, but also supported us at the time through the journey of what Desi Beats was, And I guess anyone would be silly to think that they'd have that same type of thought process leading into like 2007, when there was this dip in Asian music and the uptake of Asian music within mainstream culture. It just kind of fizzled out, and that wasn't because of them. It was just because our Asian producers that were around just weren't invested into mainstream music or pushing music to the mainstream as much as they were before.
I'm happy with that answer. Thanks for that one. That's good. I'm happy you're happy. The second question is leading on from I did an episode last week, which is where I call it the jump off, where I get people from Instagram sending in questions and topics, and then I just answer them in that way. But one of the answers was around Asian media, and I've had a few months to kind of think of this, and where it got to was that over the last 18 months, we've had some of our biggest artists AP Dillons, your current Orchards, Diljit Dosanjh. All these people come and do a tour. It's been very unique timing because there was always this kind of gentleman's agreement. Like Gurdas would do 1 year and then nobody would clash him. Everyone else would do the year after.
Yeah.
Because he used to tour that way.
Yeah.
But over the last few years, that's gone out the window. Everyone's just like, I'm coming whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
And what I've noticed was that there was none of those big artists have done a real in-depth interview, especially with likes of, let's say, Asia, BBC Asian Network as well at the same time. Because they've gone on this kind of no media policy, they control their own stories and their narrative. Do you see that as a positive or negative effect in the long term? The reason why I say that is because if they don't have these big interviews with big organizations, the smaller people who are trying to aspire, who are content creators on their, whether they're an influencer, a blogger, or a journalist, they won't have access to these guys, and you kill that next generation of potentially coming through.
Yeah.
So do you? What's your opinion of what I've just said? Have I got that wrong, or do you think? I know it's a very unfair and loaded question, but
I think that there's 2 points here. If you're coming into the country and you're doing a in-depth conversation with someone if you're doing an in-depth conversation with somebody, are you doing it to sell tickets?
Yeah.
Or are you doing it because you want a person that is going to be interviewing you to let the fans know a bit more in-depth into what you're about? That's the first thing. Because obviously, if you're doing it to sell tickets, I would be here just selling you tickets. So every single time you talk to me, at the end of it, I'll be like, yeah, well, you can see me at Wembley Arena or, Birmingham NEC. That will be the conversation that keeps on going on and on and on. And the generation that comes now sees right through that. They know when they're being duped. They're not there to be like, oh my God, he gave an amazing interview, and at the end he said he's going to be here. Never works that way. I know people who have done that, and they've had to give away 2,000 tickets free of charge to an event that just happened for a massive star. And it kind of gets into that situation where you kind of lose the essence of giving an interview. If you're giving an interview to somebody, I think you should be doing it because you want to connect with your fans a lot more. But also, it's a difference from doing an interview on Instagram, let's just say, for instance, or, like your own media platform. I think it's really good that you have somebody like yourself interviewing me and asking me questions that might not get asked from anybody else. Because a lot of the time people ask, how did you get together? How did this happen? And that's it. But, you kind of ask different questions that maybe you won't get that through that. So I think it's really important that you get a personal touch and a human touch to what you're trying to do. And I think it's really, really important that the artists that come into the UK, if they have that whole thing of, I'm not doing any interviews, you have to also question why. What are you hiding from me that basically you're not going to do any interviews? I would be doing. I would choose, if I was to go to the UK, I would definitely pick up 2 or 3 of the bigger brands that are allowing me to do interviews, but also make sure that they're not the same kind of interview. So if they all sit down in a studio and talk through your life, that doesn't really interest me. But, if there's a conversation, number one, about my life and all the rest of it, that's fine. But the second interview is about, let's go through a music collection of what influenced you to get where. Yeah, cool. That sounds great. Or the third one's going to be, let's do a kind of, I don't know, an episode like Top Gear, but with Shub, let's just say, for instance, because he's always talking about cars. So let's see how much he knows about cars.
Yeah.
That stuff really interests me. Then on top of that, you're right. Now, you've done the top people. Now, what about the younger generation that are coming through? You have to find those people that are really, really interesting. And this happens in other music cultures all day long. It just sometimes doesn't happen with us. So, where are those interviews that you're having with the grassroots level, with mid-level? I guess people really need to understand that when they are coming to the country and they are doing these things, how do they make things look and sound different enough so that every media outlet that you do kind of gets the shine, because obviously if everyone's seeing the same content pop up on your same feed over and over again, they're not going to really care. And also, they're not going to distinguish between one brand and the other.
Yeah, I think it's like, look, BBC Asian Network is the biggest radio station. And if our biggest artists are not going on there, you're like, what the fuck's that all about? Because, it was almost like, where you see someone coming in to do a tour, that's the only time they're going to come into the country. Your first interview you got to do is on Asian Network. I don't care who's it with. So you come on there because you're going to pick up little snippets, and some people don't know that there was a concert going on. And I just think that if they're not doing it from there, for somebody like myself trying to listen to them and pick up this is pre-podcast. I'm like, I don't get it. I don't understand it. Like, the same exact point that you made is, what are you hiding that you can't do that, or that you think that there's no value? If you think you're not getting any value by doing even a connection with the fans or doing something like that, I that's the bit where my sort of apprehension comes from.
So again, like, all of that 100%. But also, if you're not even thinking outside of the box, other than an interview, now, to be honest, Asian Network just isn't a radio station anymore. Mm-hmm. It's it's a YouTube channel. It's a media platform.
TMZ.
So, right. So now it's not only about being on air, and also this is Brit Asia and all of them. It's not just about being on the TV station or being on air that is the number one thing. So just to give you an example, Raghav, if you look on Asian Network's page, Raghav, I was doing a mix that I usually do like on a Friday night, and Raghav comes in and starts singing like one of the sections of his song. It's up on their page. If I tell you something, that Raghav wasn't even meant to be in the country. He had literally just flown in from like another gig, and he'd called me and he was like, let's go. Like, he'd call D and I, and he was like, should we grab some food or whatever? I was like, yeah, cool, let's grab some food. And he'd just come to the radio station. He's like, it's just easier to meet you there. He'd come to the radio station, and then when he'd met us there, I was doing this mix, and then he was like, yo, it'd be hilarious if I just pop out and start singing, isn't it? I'm like, no, it's not going to be hilarious if you did. It'll be hilarious when you do it. Here's a microphone. I'm going to start cutting it up. Dee's going to record it on his iPhone, and you just come out and start singing the song. And it's something just so simple like that. But online got so many hits towards it. And again, it wasn't about, I'm here to promote something. And this is like, bearing in mind, the song that I used was, the bigger hits for him. But it wasn't when it had just come out. This song had been out for 2.5 months. So actually, he's already had his next song already out at the same time. So it wasn't like I was doing it because I'm here to promote your song. We were just actually messing about in the studio, and he just decided to be a part of that. Yeah. And I think it's that. I think it's the point of those relationships still really, really need to be together and need to happen. And then original forms of content need to keep on happening as well. Because again, like I said, if you keep on having the same content with different media platforms, it's just not going to work. People are going to see through that all the time.
Yeah, really, honestly, I really appreciate you actually answering the question from there, because it was like, it's something that really bugging. It's really bugging me. I don't know whether it's because you have an extra filter on because of that. You see it now, but I just thought, I don't think it's a good look for him. I really don't think it's a good.
No, I don't think it is, because I think then you become like kind of what maybe happens in India, where they control, the media side of things a little bit. And you don't really want that to happen. What you want is, you want an artist to come in and feel comfortable. And it could be anything. I think it would be great if, and I know that Honey Singh has done this a little bit as well. He talks about his mental health a little bit now. It'd be really good if he can come into the UK and he talks about that. But I'm pretty sure that if you're a promoter and you're trying to sell a ticket, it's not going to be cool for him to do that at a time when he's trying to promote a tour. And that's cool. But Honey Singh comes into the UK or is around enough times outside of tour time to come in and do something special, whatever it might be, and again, I think that's really like, with Jazz Dami, we went to his concert for his brother. I think it's really good that he kind of speaks about those situations, because a lot of the time, not everything is just, amazing. Jazz Dami might have great records. He has, an EP out. Everything might be going well in his life, but you also have this big influence in his life, which is his brother, who's going through something really bad. And Jazz Dami, man, he's doing everything he can in his power to change the outcome or to try and change the outcome. And I think that's a beautiful story. I think those things need to be spoken about in the same way that they are spoken about in any other place. You get loads of people, Dua Lipa, all these other people can go on any media station and talk about everything they're doing in their lives or what's not going right in their lives, and it still sell tickets. So why should it be different within our music scene?
I had I know Juggy D pretty well, and I think I was one of the first, if not the first, podcast where he kind of talked about his addictions, kind of thing.
Absolutely.
And I was like, if you think about how he calls himself the Punjabi rock star, and you're like, a rock star has addictions, has drugs, do all of these things, within there. It's in the name. But there was another side of that industry which saying, "Oh, we can't show people that we drink. We can't show people that these exist and that. We've got to be very clean cut." Now, through his experience of sharing his problems, the amount of people that have opened the door for him to speak to get into treatment is massive. And so I think those layers and those that need to be peeled off, and having those discussions are becoming more and more, because, as you say, listeners now know all of this stuff online. And if you go and do an interview, you don't get asked that, they're like, "Oh, forget it. There's no point."
Juggy is the actual example that we can talk about. Yeah. He has issues, and that's documented. He even says he has those issues. That's cool. So we're not putting anything out there that isn't there.
Yeah.
He's forthcoming in his problems. He apologized for his problems. He now gets help for his problems. Mm-hmm. He now documents his problems to the point where he tells people, "I'm this sober. I'm this many days away from all these things." We've been around Juggy, and he's even said, "I can't be around those people. I can't be in all of these positions that are triggers for him." Great, but he is still booked across the world. He's still at weddings. He is still in clubs. He is still, overseas doing all these kind of things. He's still doing He's still doing all of these things. He's still doing all of these things that are still important to him being a music star. And I think that's a really, really good place to be. That people know you, and they know you, and they support you on the journey. And, it's okay to be like that. It's not a problem.
And from his posts, how many lives that he's had an impact on in saving, he'll never know. But he's taking that gamble.
Yeah, man.
Right, I'm going to bring it to a close at this bit, Rav. So this is known as the Bhandwagon Podcast, and in this space, I give an opportunity to my guest. Is there a bandwagon that they want to jump on? Is there a bandwagon that they want to jump off? Or is there anything that they want to get off their chest? This is the space to do so. So, Rav, this is your opportunity.
I'm not sure. I don't know what I'd like to get off my chest. I think there's more and more people need to start taking up and realizing what kind of positions they play within our music scene. So artists, producers, radio stations, TV stations, all the rest of it. Like, if you're built on promoting UK talent and, have that as a part of your title, and you're not doing that, then you can't complain about the UK scene being so slow in terms of uptake. I've really, really had to dig and find artists from the UK, especially Bhangra music, to kind of try and figure out what's going on and what to bring out and what to, kind of showcase on our radio station. And a lot of the time when I speak to them, they're like, "We can't sustain this because we don't get help from any of these people." Asian Network's probably one of the few that do it, but there's so many other radio stations out there that I think need to really, really, and not really radio stations, but blogs and everything need to really, really step up and realize that the world kind of looks at the UK as being the epicenter of all of this. So if we're not showcasing it, if we're not doing well and we're not bigging it up ourselves, you can't complain about it then. Canada has got its own ecosystem in terms of the amount of great talent they're pushing out and everything. America the same, India's the same. All these things are so amazing, but really we need to start carving out, and we need, not to say that it's gone away, but we need a Desi Beats part 2 of a music scene, of a genre of music to come together and kind of push that forward again. That's kind of really it. I don't think there's anything else.
That's what you got to do now. But Rav, honest to God, I really, really enjoyed that conversation. I hope you enjoyed it as well.
Thank you.
Just to hear some of the lessons and your opinions on certain things, I think is really important. They're documented, and we know, for the next generations, or even people now, can pick up those lessons and help to support you moving on what you're trying to do, how they can support themselves. I think it's massive.
Oh, thank you so much, man. And it's important as well that people like you exist as well in this landscape. It's great to have peers, and also podcasts like yours and people like you as well, who are really passionate about making sure that the right voices are heard in the right way.
Rav, have a good Christmas. Look after yourself, and we'll check in definitely in the new year, bro.
Take care, man. Peace.